Hello again, Alex here. So, this is a vlog about fear. Okay, I'm going to be doing a range of vlogs about different emotions and talking about what the purpose of these emotions might be. Okay, if you've seen some of my other vlogs, you might know that the type of therapy that I do is very much focused on getting us to change our relationship with distress, right? So rather than trying to get rid of it, we're going to try and change our relationship to it so that it doesn't seem so big and scary. And then we don't have to try and avoid emotions. And avoidance behaviors cause us all sorts of problems, right? And when we learn how to turn towards unpleasant emotions, we actually build up our tolerance to be able to sit with and get through those emotions. Okay, so it's really important to understand why we have distress. Feeling bad is a really important part of being a human being. There's reasons why we have emotions like fear, right? There's a reason why we feel distressed. It's really important, actually, for our survival as a species that we have these emotions. So, thinking about fear, most people can figure out the purpose of fear, right? It's protection. So, protection for ourselves, but also protection for our loved ones, our children, our family. And so, without fear, we'd all die out, right? Because if a lion's running at me, I need something that's going to get me to act, right? Now, of course, fear can also be unhelpful sometimes, right? So I work a lot with people who, might have really bad anxiety, for example, and, they get that sense of fear, very intense fear, going to the shops or answering the phone or, going outside their house sometimes, right? Sometimes they're not even sure what it is they're afraid of. It's just this constant sort of body sense of fear. And so that's obviously really problematic if you're struggling with that in your life, what we might call clinical anxiety or anxiety. But fear itself is a good emotion and we need to have it, right? Otherwise, we're not going to protect ourselves. So the trick is figuring out when is my fear valid and when is it helpful, okay? So with fear, we say that fear is valid if our lives or our physical well-being is under threat or the lives or the safety of someone that we love, okay? Then fear is good and we want to get out of the way and let it do its job, right? We want to let it spur us to take whatever action we need to keep ourselves or our loved ones safe, right? But what about when fear is not valid and not helpful, right? Say it's fear of leaving the house, right? Let's use that as an example. So we say the fear is not valid because you're not actually in physical danger. If you leave the house, chances are nothing bad is going to happen to you. There's no evidence. Now, if there's somebody standing outside of your house with a gun, then yeah, like fear is valid. Don't go outside. But if that's not the case, then fear's, telling us that there's a lion and there's no lion. So we want to be able to tell the difference. And, sometimes when fear, the triggers are a little more subtle than that, it can be hard to tell whether it's an actual danger or not. So a lot of people have a fear of public speaking, right? And the fear feels very valid. Like, oh my God, I'm going to get up and I'm going to talk. And what if people think I'm really stupid, right? What if they laugh at me? What if they think I'm like just a dummy? That feels like, oh wow, this fear is really valid, but actually it's not, because we can survive if people think we're a dummy, right? Like, it doesn't feel very good, like it feels yucky, but nothing physically bad is going to happen to us, right? So we'd say still the fear is not valid. We want to be able to identify that. And then we want to say, is the fear helpful, right? So again, if it's spurring me into some sort of action that's going to be needed, then great, go with it. But if not, if I then decide to cancel my speech because I'm really afraid, maybe I've then missed an opportunity to get my message out there or to help people or to, promote my business or, whatever it is. So not helpful at all. And in fact, the more that we avoid those triggers, the more we're going to have to avoid later on, right? So that's sort of the pattern. Our tolerance to the fear starts to go down the more we avoid it. So we want to ask ourselves those two questions. Is the fear valid and is it helpful? Now, If we say, okay, it's not valid, I'm not in actual danger, and it's not helping me in any way, what can we do? Well, in DBT therapy, we would talk about doing opposite action, okay? And opposite action is, all right, the emotion is fear, we've identified that. What's the urge that goes along with fear? It's avoidance, right? The urge is, I'm just going to get away from that thing that's scary, so I'm going to cancel my speech, I'm not going to do it. We want to notice, okay, if this isn't valid or helpful, this fear, we're going to do the opposite of that. So rather than avoiding what I'm scared of, I want to approach it, right? I want to throw myself into that speech. I want to, make it great. I want to, share things about myself, share my message. I want to even use my body to do the opposite of fearful, right? So I might speak in a really nice, clear voice. I might make eye contact with people. I might smile. I might, pull my shoulders back and stand tall, right? Rather than the scared kind of impression like this. So wholeheartedly, we take on that opposite action. I am going to wholeheartedly approach what it is that I fear. And if things go badly and people laugh at me, all right, that's going to suck, but I will survive it. And guess what? Next time I have to do a speech, maybe it won't be so scary. In fact, sometimes it's kind of good when the worst thing happens because we learn that we can actually survive it, deal with it. It's not the end of the world. It sucks for a while and then it's gone, right? So that's actually building up our resilience, right? To sitting with these unpleasant emotions. And it gets a little bit easier and a little bit easier to deal with that fear. And the fear just goes down and down and down, little by little. So I might always have some anxiety and fear when I'm talking in front of people, but it's going to be much less if I've really approached that and thrown myself into that rather than avoiding it. So I hope that's helpful, guys. If you have any other questions about opposite action or DBT or any of this stuff, hit me up on my website or on my socials. Okay, bye.